Imagine for a second that you are reading the headline of a major global news story, a massive military strike, the fall of a powerful regime,
Right.
the kind of raw geopolitical turning point that will be written about in history textbooks for the next 100 years. Now, what if I told you that to really understand that event, you shouldn't be looking at military strategy, satellite imagery, or, I don't know, diplomatic cables?
Which is usually exactly where we'd start.
Exactly. What if instead the exact blueprint for this modern military strike wasn't drafted in the Pentagon, but was actually a cosmic script written thousands of years ago in ancient scripture?
I mean, it sounds like the plot of a geopolitical thriller, but that is the exact framework we're going to be exploring today.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a really highly provocative thesis presented in a video by commentator Jonathan Cahn. And the central focus of his commentary is the February 28th, 2026 joint military strike by America and Israel that resulted in the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Now, before we get into the weeds of this, we have a very clear mission today, and I want to state this up front for you, our listener. The video we are unpacking contains highly charged political and religious viewpoints.
Extremely charged.
Right. It mentions polarizing modern figures and deals with explosive life and death global events. So we want to be crystal clear. We are taking absolutely no sides here.
Not at all.
Not left-wing, not right-wing, and we are certainly not endorsing the specific theology presented. Our only goal, our mission for this deep dive is strictly and impartially to unpack the material. We just want to help you understand the fascinating, highly specific way this creator connects ancient biblical text to breaking modern news.
And what's fascinating here is how the commentary completely bypasses the standard analytical lenses we are also used to. When an event of this magnitude happens, you generally expect the analysis to be about drone trajectories or intelligence failures or election year politics. But Jonathan Cahn ignores all of that. He frames a 21st century assassination entirely as the latest battle in a cosmic war between ancient spiritual forces.
It's a completely different paradigm.
Exactly. He treats the modern actors as if they're simply stepping onto a stage to play pre-assigned roles in a drama that has literally been running for millennia.
So let's start with the inciting incident as the video describes it, and then I want you to help me understand how he builds this case.
Sure.
On Saturday, February 28th, 2026, America and Israel commenced a targeted military attack on the leaders of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And the most massive consequence of this strike was the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, along with several of the nation's most powerful men.
Right.
How does the creator of this video characterize Khamenei to set up this ancient narrative? Because you have to have a certain type of antagonist for this to work.
You do. To understand the framework being presented, we really have to look at how Cahn profiles the antagonist. He characterizes Khamenei, who ruled Iran for 37 years starting in 1989, not just as a hostile foreign leader, but as the literal architect of modern evil in the Middle East.
Okay.
The video explicitly lays the blame for a massive web of terrorism directly at his feet. According to the commentary, Khamenei was the primary force funding Hezbollah and supplying them with missiles to fire into Israel.
He's the bankroll.
Exactly. He is identified as the ultimate backer of Hamas. And Cahn specifically states that the horrific events of October 7th, the slaughter of Israeli families and youths at that music festival, simply could not have happened without his financial and logistical backing.
That paints a very specific, ruthless picture of a geopolitical adversary, but the video also touches on his domestic impact, doesn't it? How did his own people react to his leadership and ultimately his death?
Well, the video points out that he didn't just target external enemies. He slaughtered thousands of his own Iranian citizens who opposed his regime. And this leads to a really striking detail from the aftermath of the strike.
What's that?
When the news of Khamenei's death broke, Cahn notes that the streets of Tehran, his own capital city, were flooded with celebration by his own people.
Wow.
Furthermore, the video highlights that at the time of his death, Khamenei was actively seeking nuclear capabilities. The creator stresses that these weapons would undoubtedly have been used for mass destruction, specifically aimed at annihilating the Jewish people.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is where I need your help to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
We have a modern military strike on a nation-state actively pursuing nuclear weapons. That's modern geopolitics. How on earth does the creator justify connecting a 21st century nuclear standoff to a Bible story from thousands of years ago?
It requires a massive leap back in time, all the way to the foundational texts of the biblical Exodus.
Okay, set the scene for me.
Picture this. The Israelites have just been set free from slavery in Egypt. They are wandering in the wilderness, they are incredibly vulnerable, and they are suddenly attacked.
And who is attacking them in this scenario?
A people known as the Amalekites, led by a figure named Amalek. According to the commentary, this was the very first time the newly freed Israelites were attacked by another nation. It's an unprovoked assault on the weak and weary.
Just a completely predatory attack.
Exactly. Now, with divine intervention, the Israelites survive and prevail. But the aftermath of this battle is what sets the stage for the 2026 strike. God issues a decree telling Moses to write it down as a memorial.
What does the decree say?
The decree states that God will utterly wipe out the memory of Amalek from under heaven, and crucially, that God will have war against Amalek from generation to generation.
It's generation to generation.
Yeah.
That phrase feels like the anchor for everything that follows. Think of the Amalekites as the original blueprint for the ultimate villain in this narrative. But how does that bloodline actually carry forward? It's not like they just vanished into thin air.
That is the exact thread Cahn pulls on. Fast forward a few centuries from Moses. The Israelites now have their first king, King Saul, and they are once again at war with the Amalekites.
The generational war continues.
Right. Saul's army defeats them, but Saul disobeys a direct divine command. He decides to spare the brutal, violent king of the Amalekites, a man named King Agag.
Why would he spare him, and what are the consequences of that hesitation?
The text doesn't fully explain Saul's internal reasoning, but Cahn emphasizes that King Agag was a man with immense blood on his hands. Because Saul fails to end this evil, the prophet Samuel has to step in.
Okay.
Samuel tells Agag that just as his sword made women childless, his mother will be childless. Then Samuel executes King Agag.
So the threat is over.
Well, no. The video argues that hesitation by King Saul allowed something dark to survive. In the time between Saul sparing Agag and Samuel executing him, the seed of Agag, the bloodline of Amalek, was somehow preserved.
Okay, so this surviving bloodline is out there. Does the video explain how this ancient grudge suddenly threatens the Jewish people again later in history?
Yes, and this requires another massive leap in the timeline. Cahn tracks this surviving seed of Agag as it migrates to the ancient empire of Persia, which is modern-day Iran.
Oh, I see where this is going.
We are now in the timeline of the biblical book of Esther. And who do we meet? A high-ranking, incredibly evil Persian official named Haman. But the video points out a very specific title given to him in the scriptures. He isn't just Haman, he is identified as Haman the Agagite.
Let me make sure I'm following. The Agagite, meaning he is literally a descendant of King Agag and therefore a descendant of Amalek.
Precisely. Cahn is building a genealogical and spiritual continuity here. The war that started in the wilderness of Egypt is now continuing in the capital of Persia. Haman becomes the new vessel for this generational war against God's people.
And Haman's plot is pretty infamous, isn't it? What exactly does he try to do?
He doesn't just want to win a military skirmish. He convinces the king of Persia to issue a decree for the total annihilation of the Jewish people within the empire. He goes so far as to build a massive gallows specifically designed to execute the Jewish leader, a man named Mordecai.
But the plot gets flipped on its head.
It does. It is foiled through the courage of Mordecai and the Jewish queen Esther. They expose Haman's evil intent to the king. And in a massive reversal of fate, Haman is executed on the exact same gallows he'd constructed for Mordecai.
Talk about backfiring.
Exactly. And this triumph, this salvation from total annihilation, becomes the basis for the joyous Jewish holiday of Purim.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and where Jonathan Cahn brings this ancient history slamming right into the events of February 28, 2026. If you're listening to this and wondering why geopolitical tensions in the Middle East seem so intractable, this framing is exactly why. You're looking at a map, but the people in this video are looking at a divine prophecy. How does the creator connect the timing of the modern strike to this ancient Persian story?
The timing is what makes this entire thesis so compelling for Cahn's audience. He points out that the weekend of February 28th, the exact weekend America and Israel launched their strike against the Iranian regime, was the weekend that ushered in the holiday of Purim.
That is wild. The holiday celebrating the defeat of an ancient Iranian leader trying to wipe out the Jews lands on the exact same weekend as the strike taking out the modern Iranian leader trying to wipe out the Jews.
Let that sink in for a moment. For the creator of the video, this is where coincidence evaporates and divine orchestration becomes the only explanation. The strike that killed the modern supreme leader of Iran occurred on the very holiday established to commemorate the defeat of his ancient spiritual predecessor.
I have to admit, when I first heard we were connecting a 2026 drone strike to a Bible story from thousands of years ago, I thought it was quite a stretch. But the sheer volume of overlaps he stacks up here is kind of staggering. And he goes even deeper into the Jewish calendar, right? Something about the specific Saturday of the strike.
He does. And to understand how wild this timing is, you have to know a bit about the Jewish liturgical calendar.
Okay.
Jewish synagogues don't just pick a scripture reading based on what's in the news that week. They're on a rigid global reading schedule that was set centuries ago. The Saturday of the strike was a very specific Sabbath known as Shabbat Zachor, or the Sabbath of Remembrance.
And what exactly are they commanded to remember on that day?
The appointed text for that day commands the congregation to remember what Amalek did to them when they came out of Egypt. It explicitly commands them to wipe out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. So according to the video, at the exact moment Israeli and American planes are in the air over modern Persia, Jewish congregations globally are chanting the ancient command to blot out the name of Amalek.
Wow, just the sheer timing of that. And wasn't there a second scripture reading for that same day?
Yes. The reading also included the exact story we discussed earlier, King Saul failing to kill King Agag, and the prophet Samuel having to step in to execute him.
So let me get this straight. You have a global recitation about the execution of a brutal, blood-filled leader from the Amalekite lineage, happening simultaneously with the military execution of Ayatollah Khamenei.
Exactly. Cahn argues you literally could not script a more precise convergence.
It's like watching a cosmic game of chess. And it isn't just the dates that line up. Cahn also draws a parallel between the methods of destruction. You mentioned Haman building a physical gallows for Mordecai, which ended up being the tool of his own death. How does the video map that onto a modern nuclear state?
The creator draws a direct parallel between the wooden gallows of ancient Persia and Khamenei's nuclear program. Cahn calls these nuclear reactors his modern gallows. Khamenei devised these facilities and weapons programs to bring destruction to Israel.
Right.
But ultimately, it was the construction of these reactors that triggered the lethal response. Because he was building these gallows, President Trump and Israel realized they could not allow the program to reach completion and launched the preemptive strike. Khamenei's pursuit of a weapon to kill his enemies is exactly what brought death to his own doorstep.
It's not just the broad strokes that align either. Cahn actually pulls out some incredibly granular details to support his thesis. Did the video mention anything about the specific political authorizations for the strike? Because modern diplomacy and ancient monarchy are vastly different systems.
He actually hones in on that very comparison. In the book of Esther, the Persian king issues a decree giving the Jewish people the right to arm and defend themselves, to strike down those who would destroy them.
Okay.
Cahn maps this directly onto President Trump. He points out that in his position as an allied world leader, Trump acted much like that ancient king, authorizing and supporting Israel's right to defend itself and strike down the leaders of Iran who were plotting their destruction.
Okay, what about the scale of the operation? Does he find any numerical overlaps between the ancient text and the 2026 military response?
He does. The video notes that in the book of Esther, the text mentions 70,000 people involved in the defense of the Jewish people across the empire. On the day of the 2026 strike, news reports indicated that Israel called up exactly 70,000 reservists to manage the military operation.
That is a very specific number to have pop up in both places. What about the location? Obviously, Khamenei wasn't hung on a wooden structure in a public square.
True, but the ancient text records that Haman, the evil Persian leader, was executed in his own house. Fast forward to the modern strike. Satellite images and news reports confirmed that Khamenei was killed in his highly certified compound, which housed his personal home and his command center, often referred to as the House of Leadership.
Let's talk about the people involved, because there is a genealogical tie-in that the video presents, which is just fascinating. How does he connect the modern leaders back to that ancient bloodline we talked about earlier?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Cahn points out a crucial tribal lineage that ties the whole narrative together in a neat bow. Go back to King Saul, the man who failed to execute King Agag. Saul was from the tribe of Benjamin. Centuries later, Mordecai is raised up to finish the job against Haman. Mordecai, the video emphasizes, is also from the tribe of Benjamin.
So, where one man of Benjamin failed, another man of Benjamin succeeded.
Precisely. Therefore, Cahn posits a mystery. The modern leader who executes the contemporary Persian antagonist must also be linked to the name Benjamin.
And the Prime Minister of Israel leading this massive 2026 strike Benjamin Netanyahu. The video presents this as an absolute fulfillment of this ancient Benjamin lineage. One Benjamin fails, another succeeds, and thousands of years later, a third Benjamin delivers the final blow.
It is a remarkable narrative loop, and the visual details are also woven into this.
How so?
Well, the book of Esther mentions that Mordecai, in his victory, went out wearing royal robes of blue and white. Cahn points out that the Israeli planes conducting the strike bore the blue and white markings of the Israeli flag, the blue star and the white circle. He sees the colors of ancient victory mapping perfectly onto the machinery of modern warfare.
The public reaction is the final piece of this puzzle, and it might be the most ironic part of the whole story. When Haman died in ancient times, the Book of Esther describes widespread celebration and joy throughout Persia. The holiday of Purim itself is a festival of joy, singing, and dancing. How does the video compare that to the streets of modern Iran after Khamenei's death?
The video vividly describes the reaction, and it's quite a contrast to what you might expect. You have a strict Islamic nation celebrating a military strike carried out by America and Israel.
It's hard to imagine.
It is, but Cahn cites YouTube videos of Iranian citizens pouring into the streets, waving blue and white Israeli flags. They were holding signs saying, "Thank you, America," and "Thank you, Bibi," using Benjamin Netanyahu's common nickname.
There was even an Iranian citizen wearing a red cap that said, "Make Iran great again." The video points out the profound irony here. The people of modern Persia were saved from an oppressive ruler and experienced immense joy on the exact ancient Jewish holiday that commemorates the joy of ancient Persians being saved from an oppressive ruler. As the creator says, they might not have even realized they were celebrating Purim.
All these converging data points, the dates, the liturgical readings, the 70,000 reservists, the locations, the recurring name of Benjamin, the blue and white colors, the public reactions are meticulously stacked by Cahn to build a singular, unavoidable conclusion for his audience.
So what does this all mean? When Jonathan Cahn looks at this mountain of overlapping details, what is his ultimate takeaway for the viewer?
For Jonathan Cahn, none of this is a coincidence, and it certainly isn't just an interesting historical echo. The ultimate conclusion of his commentary is that this convergence is absolute, undeniable proof that the God of the Bible is real, alive, and actively directing modern history. The premise is that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is still on the throne, fulfilling promises made thousands of years ago. The hand that struck down Khamenei, according to this framework, wasn't ultimately American or Israeli, it was the hand of the divine.
It takes a geopolitical event and makes it deeply personal. The video argues that if God is faithful to keep a promise regarding the defense of Israel across thousands of years, then that same God will be faithful to defend and protect the individual believer in their own personal struggles. It's a message of ultimate victory, assuring the listener that they can rest in that ancient protection instead of giving in to fear.
Which brings us to why examining a perspective like this is so valuable for you, the listener, regardless of your own personal background or religious beliefs. Understanding this framework is crucial because it illustrates how deeply ancient texts and spiritual lenses shape the way millions of people interpret modern geopolitics.
What this really reveals isn't just a timeline of events, it's a masterclass in how narrative shapes reality. For a large portion of the global population, a breaking news headline about a military strike isn't just about secular nation-states fighting over resources or borders or political ideology. It is read as a literal new chapter in an ongoing, epic, cosmic narrative. When a demographic views a foreign leader not just as a hostile politician, but as a literal ancient demon manifesting in the modern world, it completely changes the calculus for diplomacy and public policy.
It absolutely does.
Understanding that framework helps you understand the fervor, the policy support, and the deep emotional resonance these events carry for so many people. It turns a sterile, terrifying news report into a profound, generational drama of good versus evil.
And that leads me to a final provocative thought, something for you to mull over long after this deep dive ends. When we see historical events aligned so perfectly with ancient texts, the dates, the numbers, the names, it forces a fascinating question. Does the ancient text miraculously predict the future, laying out a cosmic script that humanity simply follows? Or do modern leaders, who are themselves deeply immersed in these sacred stories, these numbers, these dates, and these historical parallels, consciously or subconsciously align their actions, their timings, and their strategies to recreate the ancient triumphs they so deeply revere? When history repeats itself with such precision, is it prophecy fulfilled, or humanity intentionally echoing its favorite stories?
That is a heavy and fascinating question to leave off on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration of Jonathan Cahn's commentary gave you a new lens through which to view the news, and we warmly encourage you to keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the narratives that shape our world. See you next time.